Thanks for joining RKL eSolutions. Today you're reviewing a replay of our May 6th Sage Inventory Advisor webinar. So let's jump right in. At this point, Tom Wilson, Sage's Inventory Advisor Product Specialist, is just beginning to outline what Sage Inventory Advisor is.
Is a planning tool. It's an inventory planning tool designed to optimize your inventory, to identify what the inventory you should be carrying is, compared to what's on hand, identify any items that you have too much of, any items that you don't have enough of, and if you're spending a lot of time planning this manually, this will automate the process. And along those lines, if you look at any of our ERP platforms, again, Sage 100, 300, 500, and X3, they all have a very good inventory control module. And they do a very good job of keeping track of what your current inventory is. What are the on-hand balances? Where are the items located? They do a great job of keeping track and coordinating with the financials, the cost of the items. As customers place orders, it'll generate pick, pack, and ship tickets. It'll update invoices, update AR, do all of the transactional activities that's absolutely necessary to move material in and out of your organization. But it doesn't necessarily answer the question, is that the right inventory that you should have in stock? Given demand for the items, given lead times for the items, when should you place orders to keep that inventory in balance? And most of our customers have to make those decisions outside of the ERP platform, typically in some kind of a manual process. The information you need to make those decisions is in your ERP system, such as on-stock balances, inventory locations, your purchase order, all of that is in your ERP. But the question is, how do you harness that information? So most of our customers have to pull that information in some kind of a report, put it into some kind of a planning tool like a spreadsheet. It's a very manual and laborious process. And what our customers often tell us is that tends to result in some mistakes. And often that results in not having enough inventory. 42% of our customers have said they tend to run out of inventory when they plan the replenishment in a manual process. And that can result in poor customer service levels, which can ultimately result in lost sales. 37% of our customers have said they have the opposite problem, where they tend to have too much inventory, which means they've got more inventory than they need. Money is tied up in working capital that could be used for other things. And in addition to both those, 21% of our customers said they spend way too much time trying to figure out manually what their replenishment cycles should be. So Inventory Advisor is inside the circle. Again, it absolutely complements your investment in Sage ERP. We need in Inventory Advisor the same information that you need to pull to feed your manual planning process, but we will pull it automatically and feed this solution. And what it brings to the table is, again, it absolutely complements your investment, but what it brings to the table above and beyond anything in ERP is first and foremost a forecasting engine. It's pretty hard to determine what you should have in stock if you don't have a pretty good profile of your demand into the future. So I'll talk about the forecast and I'll show you some examples in the software. It also has an ordering and scheduling engine. So for every item, whether it's a finished good or a raw material that goes into a manufacturing process, it will recommend the minimum stocking level, it will recommend a maximum stocking level, it will calculate a reorder point, and then given the demand, with the lead time from your suppliers, compared to your stock on hand, will recommend when you need to place orders to keep your inventory at an optimal level. And then finally, it takes a page right out of an industry best practices playbook, where not every item has the same contribution to your business, and you should treat those items differently. A lot of our customers have a one-size-fits-all replenishment strategy where you hit a certain minimum level and you replace that, which often results in those excess and surplus items. This will identify and differentiate every item based on its contribution to your business so that you can plan each item accordingly. The way Inventory Advisor works is it is a cloud-delivered application. It does need to connect to your ERP system for some data. And it's a highly secure connection with encryption and keys on both ends. Your instance of Inventory Advisor is unique to you. Only you have access to it with your own unique database. But on a daily basis, Inventory Advisor is going to upload several files from your ERP system. It's going to upload your sales history. It's going to upload any orders that you have from your suppliers, any orders that you have from your customers, your on-hand physical balances, and if you do any manufacturing or kitting, it will upload your bill of materials file. That upload takes about 10 or 15 minutes, and then Inventory Advisor will disconnect from your ERP system. That information will go into your instance of Inventory Advisor, where it'll go through a series of calculations. Then your planners, your purchasing managers, anyone that you want to have access to the planning tool can. The subscription is for unlimited users. These users are not affiliated with a Sage ERP login, so you're not burning up a Sage ERP login to use the planning tool. And you can access it through any browser, any device that supports a browser. So you can work with Internet Explorer, Safari, Chrome, any device. I've demonstrated Inventory Advisor on my iPad, my iPhone, and today I'm in the Sage office on my laptop using Internet Explorer. But your planners, your purchasing managers, again, anyone that you want to have access to the planning tool will be presented with a series of planning recommendations, starting with what we call a dashboard, which is a high-level summary, a summary of the inventory at any given stocking location. From there, you can drill around, drill down, get into information that you need, but it will recommend any item that needs attention, where you need to pay some attention, any item that you have too much of, you don't have enough of, and any item that has triggered a recommendation to place an order, you can review, and it will then export that back into Sage ERP as a purchase order. Inventory Advisor is designed to answer a couple of questions from an inventory perspective. What needs attention today? And is there anything you need to make or order today to keep your inventory in balance? And it starts with some functionality, starting in that bottom left corner. And this is that industry best practices that I talked about. One of the things that Inventory Advisor is going to do by loading the sales history, we can map every item to this item classification table. And we'll rank every item's contribution to your business from two perspectives. First, what is that item's sales contribution to your business? And we'll rank that item as an A, B, or a C item. Now, the default, and this is easily changed, but the default is an A item are those items that generate 80% of the value to your business. Typically, it's an 80-20 rule where 20% of the items generate 80% of the value. B's are the next 16%, and C's are the bottom 4. So again, very easily changed, but we'll rank the item's contribution to your business from a sales perspective. Then we'll rank that same item's contribution from a material movement, inventory turns, if you will, and we'll rank it as high, medium, or low. So every item will get two classifications, an A, B, or C for its sales contribution, and a high, medium, or low for its material movement or inventory turns. And that produces a 3x3 matrix, and every item will fall into one of these 9 boxes. So it's an intersection of the sales row and the movement column. And in this upper right corner, those are the items that are the bread and butter items, the items that contribute most to your business and move the fastest. So we certainly want to highlight those. You probably want to set a little more aggressive replenishment strategy for those, as well as highlight those and prioritize if they're starting to run out. On the bottom right, Inventory Advisor brings a very robust forecast engine to the table. It will automatically load the sales history for every item. It will use that sales history and compare it to 15 different forecast methods. It will test every one and pick the one that is the best fit. So it's going to test for trends, patterns, spikes. It's going to test for seasonal patterns, and it will select a forecast method that best mimics that profile, and we'll use it to forecast 12 months into the future. So the computer is going to do the heavy lifting. It's going to load your sales history, select a forecast method, and create a computer-generated forecast for the next 12 months. Like any good forecast, you want the ability to go in and make some adjustments to the forecast, and I'll show you that in the software. But then it all comes together in this investment and service engine. So we will identify any item that in fact triggers a recommendation for an order that you can review, possibly edit, but drill down to the information so you can make decisions. And any item that does in fact create a purchase order, you can export back into ERP and create a PO without having to rekey it. And at the end of the day, what most of our customers have told us when they turn this on is that out of their existing inventory, typically 2 to 10% is in some kind of a stocked out status. Either the item is out of inventory or it's about to run out, and that could have impact on customer service, which could ultimately impact sales. 10 to 15% of their inventory is in some kind of a surplus or excess status, which means you have too much money tied up in working capital that could be used for other things. And finally, roughly half of a planner's time is not necessarily spent making planning decisions, but just spent collecting the information to make planning decisions. And this will automate the process so that your planners can spend their time analyzing data instead of collecting data. And if you can impact any or all 3 of these benefits, the ROI against a monthly subscription can be quite impressive. So let me switch gears, and I'm going to pull up a live instance of Inventory Advisor and highlight a few of the things we just talked about. So bear with me 1 second while I switch switch to my connection. And if you follow my little cursor, I am on a live internet connection. I am using Internet Explorer. I'm on a live instance of Inventory Advisor, so I'm on a live internet connection, and I'm on an instance, though, that does have demonstration data. But this is exactly what you would get when you see a live instance of Inventory Advisor, and it looks exactly the same whether I'm on my iPad, my iPhone, or in this case, my laptop. I'm going to go ahead and shrink down that top to bite back a little more real estate. But when you first log on to Inventory Advisor, you'll see what we call the dashboard. And the dashboard is that high-level summary, a summary of the inventory at any given stocking location. Typically, you want to set up your main stocking location so that it's the default when you first log on. But if you have multiple stocking locations, those will be automatically loaded from ERP, and you'll see those here. Now, in my demo database, I've got several examples of how you might want to set up a location. Los Angeles is just a standard stocking location that stores inventory and replenishes from a supplier. We also have the concept of a central warehouse, which is the same, but in addition to ordering product from a supplier, it also replenishes remote or forward stocking locations. So Detroit and New York store inventory, but they do not replenish from the supplier, they replenish from the central warehouse. So that demand needs to flow up to the central warehouse. And if you want to take any of these physical stocking locations and add them together to see what your inventory would look like in total, you can do that. And in this case, we've added all four together to see what the total inventory looks like. But to illustrate the planning tool, let's just go to my basic standard stocking location, Los Angeles. And let me walk you through the information that's on the dashboard. You're not going to spend a lot of time on the dashboard. It's designed so that at a glance, you'll get a quick view of your inventory so that you can focus and drill into what needs attention. And it starts with several panels. The first panel we call the stock holding panel, and it shows that right now in Los Angeles you are carrying $10.4 million of inventory at cost. We're recommending, though, that you should be carrying 5.7, which is based on the demand of all the items given the lead time for all those items. And you can see how your inventory has been trending. Each of the bars represents a period of time. There are 12 bars in a panel, and they can be displayed in days, weeks, or months. So if I leave it at weeks, that shows over the last 12 weeks how the inventory has been trending. The yellow simply shows the first time we loaded data from ERP, and in my demo database, at that time, we were carrying $10.8 million of inventory. You can see how your inventory has been trending, with the top of the blue bar being the actual inventory, the shaded area being the model, and I can see how that's been trending over time, with red simply being the last time we loaded data, typically last night, at which time we were carrying 10.4, recommending you should be carrying 5.7. So with just a quick glance, I can see what my current inventory is compared to what we're recommending it should be, and I can see that I'm carrying quite a bit more inventory than we need. So if I slide over to the next panel, in fact, there are 2,194 items that are in excess right now, defined as inventory above the maximum recommended stocking levels. And that's costing you $3.3 million in excess inventory. And if I hover, you can see a full report. By clicking on that, it will produce an online report that shows all 2,194 items that are in excess right now. And you can look at that report, you can export it, you can filter it, but it'll show you all the items that are in excess. But out of all 2,194 items that are in excess, these are the top 5. These 5 items alone are costing you $238,000 in excess inventory. In other words, almost 10% of the excess problem is represented by these 5 items. So these 5 items would be the ones that would have the biggest impact on your business to eliminate the excess. And then if you do that, then tomorrow you'll have a new list of 5, and eventually you will start to see your excess trend down, and you want to trend it down to 0. So again, we're trying to focus your attention on the items that have the biggest impact on your business. But that's where you have too much inventory right now. If I move to the next panel, it's called surplus order. And what that is here's a list of orders that you have in place with your suppliers, and we're predicting when those orders arrive, those items will go straight to excess. So those would be candidates to see if you couldn't delay, maybe even cancel the order. But right now there are 416 orders that when they arrive will go straight to excess, and that will cost you an additional $1.7 million. Here are the top 5. So these first 3 panels really address where do you have too much inventory. The next 3 panels are looking at the other side of the coin. Are there any items you don't have enough of? And it starts with what we call fill rate. And that is, over the last 30 days, did you have items in stock or not to meet your demand? And right now, we're achieving an 86% fill rate. In other words, 86% of the time when you need an item, it's there. So we're achieving an 86% fill rate with $10.4 million of inventory. You could be achieving a 97% fill rate with just $5.7 million of inventory if you had the right mix. So clearly we're out of balance. We have too much of the wrong inventory. We have too many items that are in excess, which we've just talked about. But because we're not meeting our target fill rate, there's other items we don't have enough of. And so if I slide over, in fact, there are 923 items that you are stocked out of. There's no inventory in the Los Angeles location. Because there's demand on those items, we're at risk of losing $843,000 in sales until we replenish. Out of all 923, these are the top 5. These 5 items alone are about to cost $306,000 in lost sales. In other words, almost 40% of your stockout problem is represented by these 5 items. And again, if I fix these, then tomorrow I'll have a new list of 5, and eventually you start to see your stockouts trend down to 0. But that's where you're stocked out right now. We're also predicting that you have some items with some inventory, but we're predicting that before your next replenishment, you will run out. We call that a potential stockout. There are 32 items, and you're at risk of losing, when they run out, $141,000 in sales. Out of all 32, these are the top 5. So again, the dashboard is just a quick glance at any given stocking location to give you a feel for what's going on with the inventory, what your inventory statuses are, what your items are, where you have too much, where you don't have enough, and which items would make the most sense to pay some attention to. Now from here you can drill into lots of detail, and that's the beauty of the tool. You can drill down, drill around to the information you need. You don't have to go back to ERP to run reports. It's all right here. So let's say I'm worried about these items that are about to stock out, and I want to figure out what do I need to do to prevent that. So let's look at this first item. It's one of the top 5. It's ST9503. It is an A sales item. It's a medium moving item, and it's about to run out. Well, let's see what's going on with this item. So from here I can drill into the detail, and that's going to take me to the next level of detail. And what you're about to see we do for every item, at every location, every day. And this kind of analysis is pretty hard to do manually. The short story is that we're recommending that you place an order for 300 units for this item. Now, kind of day in the life of a planner, you come in, look at the dashboard, maybe drill into a few items that need some attention. I see that I need to place an order for 300 units, move on. However, does that mean you need to go look up every item to see if you need to place an order for that item? Absolutely not. I'll show you the schedule that you can produce that shows you every item that you need to order today. Here's just one. We're recommending that you place an order for 300. So how did we come up with that? Well, it starts with that forecast we talked about. And so Inventory Advisor is going to automatically load the sales history for every item. You can have up to 5 years of sales history. This item has 27 months. And based on that sales history, which is represented graphically in blue, it's going to compare that pattern to 15 different forecast methods, looking for spikes and trends. And in this case, it has selected a method that has a seasonal pattern because it did find those spikes to repeat themselves seasonally. It's going to then use that forecast method to create a computer-generated forecast for the next 12 months, which is represented in yellow. So everything you see in this panel happened automatically. Inventory Advisor loaded the sales history, selected a forecast method, and has created a computer-generated forecast for the next 12 months. Now, if you want to go in and review this forecast, you certainly can. We can forecast at the item level, which is what you're seeing here. We can forecast at a group of item level, as well as we can forecast all of the items in a location. But this is an item forecast, and if you want to look at this in more detail, possibly make some adjustments to the forecast, all you have to do is scroll down, and we can peel back the onion, if you will, into a little more detail. And for this item, there are several ways to look at some more detail. The first is forecast. And at this level, I can see all 27 months of sales history. I can see the forecast, computer-generated forecast for the next 12 months, graphically, as well as a table. Here's the same information in a table. Here's the sales history. Here's the computer-generated forecast in yellow. Notice that these first 3 months, there's a little red asterisk. That means someone's gone in and made an adjustment to the forecast, which is as simple as hitting the Amend Forecast button. And that drills me yet one layer deeper. I still see the same sales history, the same computer-generated forecast, But now you have the ability to make a manual adjustment. And either the computer forecast or the manual forecast will be promoted down to the final forecast. And it's as simple as checking the box. If the box is checked, use the manual override as the final. If the box is not checked, use the computer forecast as the final. And I can see that graphically. Yellow is any computer-generated forecast. Green is any manual adjustments. And as I turn off the manual adjustments, you'll see the green collapse. And now we're back to the computer-generated forecast. So one technique for adjusting the forecast, let's say I have a big sales promotion and I want to increase the forecast. One technique is to simply check the box and type in a number. Another technique is to select a range. So I've just selected the first 3 months, and what I want to do is they have a big sales promotion, and for these 3 months I want to increase the forecast. So I've selected those 3 months. Let's increase the forecast by 20% for those 3 months. Simply grab this slider and move it over to 20%. What I did was, I didn't try to outthink the computer-generated forecast in yellow. I just wanted to put a 20% increase on it for these 3 months. So I simply apply that forecast, and now any change I made is summarized, and the yellow has adjusted. It was a minor change, so you can't really tell visually that the yellow changed, but it did. So we've adjusted the forecast. So a very powerful forecast. The computer's going to do a lot of the heavy lifting, and you'll be able to go in and make some adjustments. Now, the next thing Inventory Advisor is going to do is it's going to recommend what is the minimum stock you should be carrying for this item in the Los Angeles warehouse. And the reason you want a minimum is things happen. Customers order more than you thought. Suppliers don't always deliver on time. So you want to have a safety or a buffer stock so that you don't run out. And so that will eliminate the stockouts, but you don't want so much safety stock that you start to see some excess. So one of the things that goes into our recommendation for the minimum is we've got several inputs. One of them is that, again, back to that industry best practice playbook. You probably want to set a little higher fill rate target for your higher value, higher moving items. Well, what is the lead time with the supplier? The longer the lead time, you might need a little more safety stock. Well, what is the risk that this supplier of this item, what's the risk that they may not deliver on time or may deliver the wrong quantity? Well, we do have historical performance in ERP. We know every purchase order we placed on the supplier. It's just how do you tap into that information to make decisions? So if I scroll down, one of the tabs you see is supplier performance. How has this supplier been doing? Have they been delivering the right quantity? Have they been delivering on time? I can see that graphically as well as a table. Here is literally every purchase order that we've placed on this supplier. Here's one. We placed it on August 8th. With a requested delivery of the 13th. It arrived on the 14th. We ordered 110 units. We received 110 units. This supplier's doing pretty good. In fact, they're doing better than the stated lead time. So we may not need quite as much safety stock. So we're using this information to adjust the recommendation for safety stock. Also, what is the risk that this forecast isn't perfect? Well, we're tracking forecast to actual sales, and are there any variances? So if the forecast is off, up or down, that's going to have some impact on the safety stock recommendation. So all of this goes into our recommendation that you should be keeping 5 days worth of safety stock for this item. Well, what does 5 days mean? Well, it all comes together in this policy panel. And it's really quite simple. We look at it in days and units. And it's a textbook equation. When you take the lead time, which we imported from ERP, and you add it to the safety stock, which we just calculated, together that equals what's called a reorder point. So when your stock dips below 95 days of coverage, trigger a recommendation to place an order. The order you place depends on your cover forward period. This item was set up for 30 days. So when you dip below 95 days of coverage, trigger an order for 30 more, which gets you to your max. So here is your min, your reorder point, and your max in days of coverage. So the trick is, how do you transpose days of coverage into actual units? How many units do you need of this item to cover that 90 days of lead time, that 5 days of safety stock? Well, it depends entirely on the forecast. So based on this forecast in yellow, you need 249 units just to cover your 90 days of lead time. So now in units, driven off of a forecast that you've reviewed, possibly made some changes to, in units, here is your min, your reorder point, and your max. An Inventory Advisor does this every day for every item. It's going to then compare that to what your ERP system says is your on-stock balance, less any back orders, less any allocated or promised items, plus any items that are on order from the supplier to give you a net stocking position. So right now you have 66 units available in the Los Angeles warehouse. Well, heads up, red flag, that isn't even enough to meet your demand over lead time, so you're at risk of stocking out. This is a potential stocked out item. 66 units is also below the reorder point, so that's going to trigger a recommendation to place an order. The order we recommend is actually to get you back up to your max. So ideally, you should place an order for 231 units. That would keep you at an optimal inventory level, and that's the order we would recommend you place unless Sage ERP tells us you have some rules for this item. Well, this particular item, you cannot order less than 300. If you order more than 300, you have to order in multiples of 10. So even though we're recommending you order 231, we have to honor the minimum order rule, so we're recommending you place an order for 300. And all of this analysis is done every day for every item. Now again, do I need to go look through every item like this one to see if I need to place an order? Absolutely not. In fact, that's what this Orders tab does. So kind of another thing that your purchasing managers, your planners will want to do is certainly go to the dashboard, look at any items that need attention. You can drill into the detail to figure out what's going on with those items. But if you want to see a list of every item that you need to order today, like this one that is recommending you place an order, you simply go to the Orders tab, and with 2 clicks, there's one. What I'm doing is saying, show me every item that has triggered a reorder point, and in this case, out of my main warehouse, you could do it for any of your other stocking locations, but we'll stick with the main warehouse. Show me every item that has triggered a reorder point out of the Los Angeles warehouse, broken out by supplier, and here's the report. And so it's broken out by supplier, and if I want to take it one level further, I can say, and you know what, and I want to sort based on value. Let's go, here is the least expensive, here's the most expensive. So now I have a list of every item that has triggered a reorder point, broken out by supplier in descending order of value. And so the most expensive order that you need to place today, or that we're recommending you place today, is with the Yangzhou Kamet Company. We're recommending that you place 13 items on order. Now, you may order 100 items from this supplier, but today 13 items triggered the reorder point. We're recommending you place 8,200 units on order, and the cost of this order is $263,000. So now, as a purchasing manager or a replenishment or materials planning manager who needs to create a PO, what we try to do is give you all of the information so that you can create a PO, all in one place so that you can drill down and drill around. So let's do this. Let's look at this recommended order with this supplier, and let's create a PO. And it's as simple as you click that button, and let's go create a PO. And now what it's going to do is give you all the information you need to validate this recommendation. So think of a day in the life of a purchasing manager. Here's the order we're recommending you place with the Yangzhou Kamet Company. Here's a little running total down at the bottom. We're recommending that you place 13 items on order, 8,200 units. This order is going to cost $263,000. Now, if you had volume and weight set up in your item master, that would pull in here, which might be very helpful information if you're tasked with filling up a container or a truckload. You can see a running total of how this order fills up those containers based on volume and weight. But for each of the 13 items that we're recommending you place an order, we're going to give you, here's one of the line items, we're going to give you a summary of the forecast, so you can give that forecast a visual glance and see if it looks correct. And in this case, that's a very flat forecast. If that doesn't look right, you can always drill back to the detail of this item where you can pull up the forecast and drill down into it and possibly make an adjustment to the forecast. We'll show you that information in days and units. If you have multiple stocking locations and you carry this item at other locations, before you place an order, it might be nice to see what the status of that item is at the other locations. You simply click on this On Hand button, and it'll show you what this item's stocking status is at all of the other locations it's stocked at. And again, it gives you visual information, so if you've got some excess at one location, maybe you want to move that before you place this order. It'll show you this item's contribution to the business. This item right now is about to stock out. Inventory Advisor is recommending that you place 146 items on order. We're honoring the minimum order rule of 36. this item's going to cost $1,038 each, and at 146, this line item's $151,000, and if you place it today, based on the lead time, it'll arrive on August 14th. If this isn't enough information to validate this recommendation, you can always, as I mentioned, drill back to the detail for further analysis. But let's say I've done that, and you know what? I'm more comfortable putting 150 of these on order. I've just overridden the recommendation. I tab out, and now we've added 4 items to this order. It added $4,100 to this order, and now this order is going to cost $267,000. So now I can continue to review each of the line items. I can add, delete, drill down as I need. But let's say as a planner, I get a price break from this supplier if I get over $269,000. So I can go through the line items, and you know what? I'm at $267. I need to add a few items to this order to get to that $269. And I can go through, and it probably would say, you know what, I don't want to add too many more of these because they're C items, they're low-moving items. That probably wouldn't make sense to add any additional to the order. If I'm going to add anything, I probably at a minimum want to add something that's going to be a quick mover. But you know what? I'm already looking at an order for $1,260, which is the optimal order. I probably don't want to order too many more than that. So before I add any items from these 13, are there any other items I order from this supplier that would make sense to add to this order? So again, these are just the 13 that triggered the reorder point. If I want to look at all the other items I order from this supplier to see if any of those make sense, you can hit this button right here, and it'll pull up a list of all the other items you order from this supplier and give you the same level of information to drill down, drill around, make decisions. It'll show you the items. It'll show you the item's contribution to the business. And I can now review those items to see if any of those make sense to add to this order. Well, this is a new feature we've just added. One of the beauties of a cloud-delivered application, once we add it, it's immediately available to you. You don't have to upgrade or install a new release. And we call it the top-off feature, which is out of the remaining items, the items that have not yet triggered a reorder point, are there any items that would make sense to add to this order if I'm trying to get to a cost goal of $269,000? Which of these remaining items would make sense to add to this order? Solve that problem. And it's recommending you add a couple of items. And if I scroll down, the items it has selected are this one and this one. And the reason it's recommending those is it's the most likely item to trigger the reorder point next anyway. So if you're going to add anything to this item, those would be items that would make sense because you're going to be ordering very soon anyway. So if you're trying to get to a cost break or a size break, those would be the 2 items we'd recommend. Add that to this order. And now what we've done is Inventory Advisor has guided us, given us information to validate the recommendation on the 13 items that triggered a reorder point. We've gone in and added a couple items that would make sense to add to this order to get to a cost goal of $269. I'm ready to turn this into a PO. I simply hit this button right here, and now Inventory Advisor sent this over to Sage ERP and created a PO. So I didn't eliminate the purchase order process. You still need to execute a PO. Any procedures, workflows, approval processes still apply. But what this replaced was, how did you determine what to order? How did you create a PO? Typically, it was a spreadsheet, some manual process, and you had to key in a PO. This replaced all of that with a very automated process, saving your planners a lot of time. And at the end of the day, what you'll see is you'll start to see your inventory trend down to the model. You'll start to see your fill rate trend up to the target, and you'll start to see these statuses. You'll start to see those trend down to 0, because at the end of the day, you don't want any excess stock. You don't want any stocked out items, and this will guide you to the items that make sense to focus on. And once you get in balance, you'll be able to stay in balance moving forward at an optimal level. So that's a quick tour of Inventory Advisor. I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint for just a moment, and we'll talk a little bit about the pricing and the installation, and then I'll turn it back to Danica, and then we'll open it up for questions. So Inventory Advisor is a little different paradigm in both licensing and installing software. Because it's a subscription-based service, there's no large upfront license fees. And especially planning tools. Planning tools of this caliber can be quite expensive. They can be in the $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 range if you had to pay the license fee up front. So that's part of why we put it on a monthly subscription. It's for unlimited users. Anytime after the first month, you can cancel the subscription. We do have a one-time setup fee. It's $2,250, which is a fixed fee implementation that will install the software and get it up and running. That covers our cost of deploying the software, setting up the server, consulting time to work with you, and the training. And I'll walk you through that in just a minute. But the monthly fee is based on how much inventory, the inventory value that you're planning in Inventory Advisor. And it's broken up into two pieces. We have a base fee of $199. Then we have a fee based on how much inventory you're planning in the tool. And there's a rate for every $250,000 of inventory. And so we'll take those two together. So let's say this is a live spreadsheet. I am going to I'm going to exit so that we can pull it up. So let's say you had $1.5 million of inventory. With $1.5 million of inventory, that's your inventory value, your monthly fee would be $291. So your commitment would be the first month subscription of $291 plus the activation fee of $22.50. So your commitment for this would be $2,541. Then anytime after that, you can terminate the subscription. Sage will bill either your credit card or your bank account the $291.50 every month. But again, anytime after that first month, you can cancel. It's a different paradigm in installing the software as well. It's a very rapid implementation. Sage will set up your instance of Inventory Advisor on a Sage deployed and provided cloud server. We will set up a connector to your Sage ERP system so we can load your data. That process takes less than an hour. The first time we load your data, you'll want to review that data to make sure that it came in cleanly, that there was no anomalies. We've got a series of reports and dashboards that will help drive you to any item that might need some attention. So did we load any item with a negative cost, whose cost price was greater than the selling price, no negative on-hand values, things like that. You'll want to go clean that up on the ERP side. You'll then want to take a Sage-provided training course. That's part of the setup fee. It's delivered online. As many people can take it as many times as you want. From start to finish, if you did it in one sitting, takes about 5 hours. When I took it, I actually had two monitors. I had one with a live instance of Inventory Advisor and a second with the training course, and I bounced between the two quite a bit, repeated a few of the sections. I probably was closer to 8 hours, and I did it in probably 3 different sittings. But as many people can take it as many times as you want. I've since gone back and taken a few of the sections as refreshers. After you take the training, you'll want to set up a couple of sessions with my technical team. Typically, most of our customers need a couple, 2 or 3 of those, but if you need a few more, that's fine. And that would be to review any questions you have from the training, review any questions that you have from seeing your data in the inventory planning tool, anything from navigation to, why is it telling me to do that? That doesn't make sense. We can walk you through all of that. So any questions, fair game. Typically, you need a couple of sessions, but realistically, you're looking at probably about 10 to 15 hours of time over about a 2 to 3 week period, and you can be up and running and live on the software. And we've got lots of customers using this now across lots of different industries. We're up to almost 300 now that are using the product. We've got lots of great success stories. One customer, a company by the name of Hubert Glass Oil, is a distributor of oil and gas products. One of their big challenges was excess inventory. And in less than 5 months, they were able to eliminate $300,000 of excess inventory. And if you compare that kind of benefit to a monthly subscription of the $200 to $300 range, it could be a substantial ROI. So, Danica, that's all I had. The next slide was to turn it back to you. Certainly be glad to field any questions if you want to open it up.
Okay, great. Yes, if you guys have any questions, you can use the chat button, or okay, here's a couple that came in. I'll kind of combine some of these. So it does work with, say, all the Sage products. Are there version restrictions for compatibility?
Okay, yes. So for Sage 100, it works with 4.3 and above. For Sage 300, it works with 5.4 and above. For Sage 500, it's 7.4 and above. And X3, I believe, is 6.0 and above.
Okay, great. Another one that came in is, I have MRP. Does this complement or replace this module?
Actually, believe it or not, it can do both. It can absolutely replace it. The big difference between this and MRP is MRP has a place where you can enter the min, the max, and the reorder point. But the key is you have to enter it. So the question is, how often do you, or how did you calculate the min and the max, and how often do you update it? This does that every day, and it's going to drive that recommendation off of a forecast. So that's the next big difference, is the forecast. So this could replace MRP in the sense that it'll do all of that and recommend what to buy and when to buy it. However, it can also complement MRP. So we're going to calculate the min, the max, the reorder point driven off of a forecast. If you want to export that information to be imported into MRP, you can do that as well.
Okay, great. Let's give everyone another minute to see if there's any more questions that come in.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to add too is if this is something you're interested in, the ordering process is very simple. There's just two documents you'd need to sign. One is an order form that would identify what your monthly fee is, and the second is an end user license agreement. So if you'd like to see any of that, just let the team at RKL know, and we'll be glad to put a proposal together for you. All I would need to know is, what is your estimated inventory value that you'd be planning an inventory advisor?
Okay, and it looks like there's one more question. What happens to my data? Is it secure?
Yes, so the connection to your ERP is highly secure. It's encrypted. Actually, the encryption we use is a higher standard than is required for a credit card encryption. So your instance inventory advisor runs on a server that is behind a protected firewall, again with encryption that is a higher security level than even credit cards have. And I've got all of that detailed specs if you'd like to see it.
Okay, I think that appears to be all the questions, but if anyone has any more questions that they can think of, you certainly can shoot us an email or contact Gia or Rachel.
And that concludes the webinar. Should you have any questions, you can call us at 717-735-9109 or email us sales@rklesolutions.com. Thank you.